Hello my dear students, I'm Yangchen and I welcome you for another online class on English literature. I'm here to give you a brief explanation on 3 questions written by Leo Tolstoy. Before I move into my main lesson, I would like you to inform that reading the text is mandatory. This video is not a substitute for the main textbook. This is just a secondary source for your main textbook. If you haven't flipped the pages of 3 questions, please kindly read it and then watch the video. You can download this video for further reference. Before I plunge into the main story, let me just give you a brief introduction about the author. Count Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy, popularly known as Leo Tolstoy, was a Russian author of worldwide fame. He was a realist who had amazing representation of reality in his works. He was a moralist, a staunch believer of ethics and morals, and pragmatic in approach, meaning most of the Russian authors were regarded as saints. They wrote not only to please or entertain people, they wrote to enlighten as well. So they always had a message. So Tolstoy always wrote books and works with a purpose, not only to entertain but also to enlighten. Some of his notable works are War and Peace, Anna Karenina and Sebastopol's sketches. Now moving on to the major characters of 3 questions. Okay, first important character is the Tsar. Tsar is a term used to designate supreme rulers in the Tsardom of Russia. I will substitute the word Tsar with a king in my further narration. The next is a hermit. Okay, a person who has renounced the world for religious reasons, basically a saint. The next one is a wounded or bearded man, whom you will get to know further in my narration. Next is the plot. Now let me get into the plot. 3 questions is a story about a king who wanted to know the answer for 3 questions. And these are the 3 important questions. What is the right time to begin something? Who is the most important person to listen to? And number 3rd, what is the most important thing to do? The king in fact proclaimed a reward to someone or anybody who would give him a satisfying answer. He got several answers from several learned men in and around the kingdom. And he got several answers like, to his first question, that is, what is the right time for every action to begin? He got answers like, some said he should prepare a table of days, months and years and strictly follow it. Okay, and others said he should not absorb in idle pastimes. Some even went to the extent of saying that it is impossible for people to decide a right time for every action. Some said he should consult a magician and who would magically give him a right time for every action. And the other one said that he should form a council for wise men, such that they would direct him to, act accordingly to the perfect time and perfect action. Yet he was not satisfied. Equally various were the second answer to his second question. And the second question was, who is the most important person to listen to? In reply to the king's second question, some said counselors. He must have a group of wise men and counselors who would guard the king, help him. No, but some said priests who would help them for spiritual growth, spiritual heads. No, some said doctors who would help him to work further. No, but some said warriors who would help him to kill his enemies and help him to win wars. Yet the king was not happy. And to the third question, what is the most important thing to do? In reply to king's third question, the counselors and the people and the men, they replied saying that king should pursue or study science, as science is the most important subject or business for him to empower him. Next, he said, develop skills in warfare. Okay, if he develops skill in warfare, then he can attack all his enemies and capture their kingdoms and become powerful. And to the third one, some said religious worship. Okay, he should focus more on religious worship and appoint more religious heads, such that he would grow spiritually and also help the kingdom to grow. However, the king was not satisfied, and king decided to sought the advice of a hermit who was known for his wisdom and who lived deep into the woods. And therefore he decided to meet the hermit. So unsatisfied with all the various answers, he decides to meet a hermit. And the strange part of the hermit was that hermit did not entertain any king or emperor. Rather, he always met or was happy to meet common folk. Therefore, the king disguised himself as a common man and therefore made his way to meet the hermit. So on his way back, he left his horse and guards and went alone to meet the hermit. So as he reached the hut of the hermit, he saw the hermit, and the hermit was weak, frail, he was fragile, and he was diligently digging the ground. As he was digging the ground, the king approached him. And you know what he said? And the king told him, "I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. And you know what are the 3 questions? 3 questions are like, what is the right time for every action? Who is the most important person to listen to? And what is the most important thing to do?" The hermit listened to him, greeted him, smiled at him, but did not reply to him. And he recommenced his digging. The king was little startled, wondering why the hermit did not answer me. And for a while he observed the hermit. He was busy diligently digging the ground. Since the hermit was weak and old, the king thought that he would help the hermit. Therefore, he requested the hermit to sit aside, took his spade and started digging the ground for the hermit. Okay, then hours passed by. The sun was at its horizon. It was already evening time. The king was exhausted. He did not get his answer. So at last he stood up and looked at the hermit and told him, "Oh wise man, are you not going to answer me those questions? If you're not going to answer my questions, tell me. I will go back to my castle." And there is a twist in the tale, and hermit hears someone running and he says, "Shh, someone's coming." And when the king and the hermit turned around, they saw a wounded man. Wounded man came running from the woods. His stomach was bleeding. Okay, there was a cut in his stomach. And the moment he approached the Tsar or the king, he collapsed. The wounded man collapsed on the floor. The king was surprised. The king attended the wound of a man. He nursed him. He carefully cleaned the wound, bandaged him, and took him into the hut or inside the hut. And at last, when the blood stopped flowing or stopped bleeding, the hermit asked for, not the hermit, but the wounded man asked for a glass of water. Then there he provided a fresh water, and the wounded man slept. The king was extremely exhausted after his hard toil and after digging the ground, and it was already dark. So therefore, the king slept on the threshold of the house. And the next morning, when the king opened his eyes and hardly could remember where he was, he suddenly saw someone staring at him intently with his bright shining eyes. And he was like flabbergasted. Who is the person staring at him? And you know who was that person? That person was a wounded man. And you know what he told the king? The first word that he uttered was, "Forgive me." He asked for forgiveness. "Forgive me," said the bearded man in a weak voice. And the king was like shocked, startled. Why this man is asking me for forgiveness? And here is the reply of the king. He says, "I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for," said the Tsar. Then here the wounded man reveals the story. He says that actually I was enemy. I am your enemy, Tsar or the king. I had come here with the intention to murder you because the Tsar had actually executed the wounded man's brother and had seized his property. Therefore, in order to avenge the death of his brother and lost property, he had come to attack or murder the Tsar. So when the wounded man heard that the king had gone alone to meet the hermit, he wanted to seize the opportunity or the situation to kill the Tsar on his way back to castle. So therefore, he hid himself around the bush and waited for the Tsar to come back to the castle, such that he would kill him. But then, here on the other side, the Tsar was busy digging the ground and it was already late evening. He did not return to the castle. So therefore, the wounded man decided to go himself to kill the Tsar. And when he was walking or making his way on into the woods or to meet the hermit or to kill the Tsar, there he came across or he met the guards of the Tsar, and the guards recognized him and wounded him. He tried to run away from there, and when he ran away from there, he went into the woods, and there he came across or encountered whom? The Tsar. And it is the Tsar, the king, unknowingly who saved the life of the wounded man. The wounded man was extremely happy and grateful for having given another life by the king. Therefore, he asks for forgiveness to the Tsar, and he in fact promises, Tsar, to serve the king throughout his life loyally. So after listening to this entire story, the king was extremely happy, and he in fact promises, the wounded man to send the servants to attend his wound, and he not only forgave him but also promised him to restore his property. So in this way, he has made, peace with his enemy. So after that happy conversation, Tsar comes out of the house or the hut in search for the hermit. And there he sees the hermit who was sowing the seed. And that was the last request he makes. The last request. As he approaches the hermit, the Tsar requests the hermit and tells him that, "Sir or wise man, this is the last request I'm making. Please answer me my 3 questions. And the hermit says, "My boy, my son, I have already answered you, or you have already been answered." And the king is again startled. "How am I answered? I haven't received any answer." And the hermit replies, "No, your conduct have already answered you. My conduct is what the king says." Then the hermit in turn tells the king or the Tsar that, had you not sympathized me or helped me in digging the beds or the ground, you would have gone back to the castle. And on the way back to castle, you would have been murdered by the wounded man or the bearded man. Right? But the Tsar or the king sympathized the old man, helped him in digging the ground, and therefore escaped death and saved his life. In that way, he says that the most important time at that time was digging the beds. The most important person was the hermit, and the most important thing to do was to do good to the hermit. That is the answer he gives. In terms of or with regard to the wounded man, the most important thing that time was to attend the wound of the wounded man. The most important person was the wounded man, and the most important thing to do was to do good to the wounded man. So in that way, what happened? What was the consequences or the repercussion? In that way, the king could escape from getting murdered. He could escape death. That was the first reward. Second, he could befriend his enemy. It is it is not necessary all the time that you have to kill the enemy or kill anyone in order to win him. You can actually befriend your enemy or love your enemy by loving him, or through compassion, or through love, or through your kind gesture. That is the cycle that goes on. And that is what Leo Tolstoy wanted to portray in these 3 questions. And this is the last paragraph and the most important paragraph of the short story, which I have portrayed here in my PPT. It says, this is a line said by the hermit to the Tsar, or the king. He says, "Remember then, there is only one time that is important. Now, that is present time. You cannot think about, you cannot, change the past nor create the future. The only thing you can work on is your present." Next, it is the most important time because it is the only time when we have power. We can only change our present or work on our present. The most necessary man is he with whom you are. For no man knows whether he will ever have dealings with anyone else. So the most important person is the one with whom you are right now. And the most important affair is to do him good. Yes, because for that purpose alone was man sent into his life. That is the main purpose of man, that is to do good to others. Because this is a cycle. Okay, this is a cycle that continues and will go on and on. Okay, as this is a feeling of gratitude. Had not king helped the hermit, he would have died. Had not king or the Tsar helped the wounded man, he would have died. So both of the people like Tsar and the wounded man had experienced the feeling of gratitude. And therefore, the good happened to them. So in this period of lockdown, what we can do, as we all are clustered here in our respective homes, what we can do is imply the principle or the concept of this 3 question. What is the most important time? Present. We have to stay at home. What is the most important, or who is the most important person to listen to? Are the parents, family, brothers and sisters or friends. We have to listen to them, or at least can know them better. And what is the most important thing to do? That is to do good to them. In that way, we might get something good. Obviously, because that is the thing that will help us to understand and experience the feeling of gratitude. Okay. So next, this is a synopsis of the short story, and you can take it or download the video and take it later. This is a continuation of the same synopsis. Now, these are the sample questions or the past questions which I have mentioned, and the first question is multiple choice question. Okay, the wounded man was actually enemy of the hermit, enemy of the Tsar, friend of the Tsar, or disciple of the Tsar. He is enemy of the Tsar. The hermit received none but emperors, kings, common folk. The Tsar, it is common folk. The hermit was tall and weak, short and weak, frail and strong. He was frail and weak. Short question and answer. Which part of the body of the bearded man was injured in the story? 3 questions. Stomach. Where did the hermit in 3 questions live? Deep into the woods. Why did the Tsar put on simple cloth before meeting the hermit? He disguised himself as a common folk because hermit refused to meet kings and emperors. Okay. Moving on to the long question and answer. This is a dialogue or the quotation they have given. All the answers being different, the Tsar agreed with none of them. What were the questions to which the Tsar got different answers? You know the questions, right? Whom did the Tsar decide to consult when he was not satisfied? Hermit. Where did that person live whom the Tsar decided to consult? Deep into the woods. What was he famous for? He was known for his wisdom. Moving to the next question. Why did the bearded man become an enemy of the Tsar? because he had executed wounded man's brother and bearded man's brother and seized the property. And what did the man swear and resolve to do? He resolved to kill him. Why did he ask forgiveness to the Tsar, and what did he promise? He asked for forgiveness because Tsar saved his life, and he promised to serve him loyally. So in this way, I would like to end my monologue here, and I would get back to you shortly for the next lesson. Thank you so much.